Alright, what's going on, everyone? It's Blizzard, the host of the Phalanx division of the Olympian Draft League, and welcome to the start of Season 4. We are officially 5 days away from the draft, which is awesome, and I'm going to be talking about some of the changes we're making to the draft board in particular, but I decided to live stream this so you guys have an opportunity to ask questions, and I have an opportunity to explain my thought process on why we made a lot of the changes we made. This is a much more simplified version. If you haven't even been in the league before, you can still kind of see some of the thought process that go into making the decisions we make. And if you have been here before, you might be curious as to why certain mons have changed or why we decided to do things a little bit differently this season. So hopefully this gives you guys an opportunity for that. So without further ado, let's get into it. And you can see that this is the format we're going to be following. So in the top left, you can see what tier we're going to be talking about. And this will be the tier that the Mons were in originally last season. So you might see a Mon on the S tier slide that is no longer an S tier or wasn't an S tier before. But like you can see the changes there, and it should be pretty clear. But you can also tell from the arrows how the value of the Mon changed. So obviously the green arrows pointing upwards indicate that the value of the Mon is increased. And if there are 3, that means it's increased in value by 3. If there's 2, it increased value by 2. If there's 1, it increased value by 1. The gray one is no change, meaning this value of the Mon has not changed at all. And then the red one going down is 1 or 2. I don't think any Mons have decreased by more than 2 points in value. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later, but generally, it's important to note that a lot of Mons have typically increased in value or not changed as opposed to decreased because we've increased the budget from 95 points to 100 points, and we've also made some other changes. So we'll get into that more later, but it's important to keep in mind you will be seeing a lot more increases than decreases, and that's perfectly normal. So let's start with the S tier. You can see that we have Dragapult and Dragonite who have both increased in points, and both of them up to 20 points. Dragonite is Terra Normal band, and you can see that in the top right, Archaludon, Goldengo, Ursaluna Blood Moon, Annihilate, and Caesar are all Terra band, meaning for every single type they're Terra band. But Dragonite and Ursaluna are specific Terra type bands, and these are the only 2 specific type bands. But Dragonite is Terra band for normal type, and Ursaluna is Terra band for ghost type. And these are the 2 most problematic types, right? But both of these Mons still benefit from their Terra, so we decided to keep them like relatively where they're at, or increase the value and not decrease it at all, despite being somewhat Terra banned. Every Mon who has been Terra banned has either stayed the same or decreased in value, so that's something to note as well. Because Dragapult was not touched, we decided to increase his value by 1. It's very fast and very strong, has a lot of options. It's good to be a physical or special attacker, but without it kind of needs its Terra to turn into a ghost type for a physical stab on the ghost front. Its support options are also pretty good. I mean, there's a lot it has going for it, so it's definitely a 20-point Mon, especially with Terra, just to help its typing be a little more flexible, especially as such a not bulky Mon. It kind of needs the Terra to help it out a little with that. Dragonite really suffers without being able to Terra at all, and we saw last season it was on a team for a few weeks and then got dropped because it just really was not that good without Terra. So we felt like it had to have Terra, but by getting rid of Terra Normal, we get rid of the most threatening set on it, which is the Choice Band Extreme Speed set with Terra Normal. And at least without Terra Normal, it can't hit nearly as hard. So it should be a little bit more reasonable. I think 20 points of that is definitely fair for it. And then Archaludon, despite being Terra banned, we decided to keep it 20 points because its typing is already so good. And one thing I will note is that we have Complex Band Body Press from it, which is taking inspiration from Pokemon Champions, which just removed it from it entirely. And we decided to do the same. Even though it's Terra banned and Complex Band on Body Press, we decided to keep it at 20 points because its history in the league. I mean, it was the MVP one season, got second place another season, and was on the winning team both times. So we decided that Archaludon was too threatening to just move down at all. We decided to to give it these nerfs, and I think it will definitely be significantly more in check now that we have applied these nerfs to it. I think that Ursaluna with Terra Ghost, I mean, it has other good Terra types, but Terra Ghost is the best for it. And the extremely standard set that every single VGC set was running was Terra Ghost with Protect, Facade, Headlong, and Earthquake. And it Inflame Orb with Guts, right? It was just so strong. Max HP, max attack, min speed. It was the same copy and paste stat, pretty much. And so because the Terra Ghost is just so good on it, we decided to remove that. And it still has other good options, but yeah. And then Golden Go and Ursaluna Blood Moon are two mons that are pretty good without Terra. So we only moved them down by 1 point, both of them from 20 to 19. They're definitely S tier Pokemon, even though they are Terra banned, and very strong if they are set up properly, for sure. A lot of sets you can run on both of them with setup like Nasty Plot on Golden Go or Calm Mind on Ursaluna. Both of them can be a little bit bulky if you want. Both of them have a really strong signature move, so these are two Pokemon that we felt like would be pretty good still without Terra, so we moved them down just 1 point. And then Annihilape and Caesar, both of these mons actually really suffer from not having Terra, so we decided, even though we're going to Terra ban them, because we kind of have to, because if we don't Terra ban them, they could be real problems, we're going to Terra ban them, but move them down to A+ tier, actually. So neither of these mons are even S tier anymore. And I think that's for the best. If these mons were S tier mons that were Terra banned, and because they suffer so much from that, Annihilape loses its ability to run defensive sets pretty much entirely, because now you can just hit it for super effective very easily, and it can't Terra into a better defensive type. While Sneasler loses its ability to turn into a dark type, making it immune to its 4 times weakness of Psychic, a flying type to pair it with ground types. It loses a lot of its, and make its acrobatics stronger. It loses quite a few options. So I think both these mons wouldn't really live up to being an S tier if they were Terra banned. So we're going to move them down to A+ tier. And then King Gambit actually makes its way to S tier, because last season it was Terra banned. But it really wasn't earning its value as a Terra banned mon. We felt like King Gambit had to be unbanned from Terra, so we moved it up to 19 points into the S tier, but unbanned as Terra, and I think that's very reasonable for it. It's a very strong Pokemon. In Champions, it's looking pretty good right now, but I think it's a Pokemon that definitely deserves to be in the S tier conversation. I also will note about Caesar, something I forgot to mention, is that Dire Claw was also complex banned on it, and me giving it another reason to move down to the A+ tier, because Dire Claw on that thing was so annoying. I think with Dire Claw banned, it should not be as problematic. It still has Poison Jab, which is pretty much the same thing, except instead of a 50% chance for Sleep, Para, or Poison, it just has a 30% Poison. And has Gunk Shot still as an option, but it's inaccurate. So I think it should be significantly more in check as is. And yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with a lot of the changes we made to the S tier. So let's move on to the A+ tier. You can see the biggest riser here is Dondozo, who is a mon that we decided to not make Terra banned, because one of the biggest buffs or strengths of Dondozo is that almost every single team is not going to be prepared for Dondozo. You just have to build a good team, and if you run into Dondozo, maybe you have an answer for it if it's popular in that metagame, but you typically don't have a ton of great answers for it, and so it can be a problem in that way. But in a draft format where you always know that you're going to be up against Dondozo, because you can just look at the other person's team and see, okay, Dosogiri is up against me. I know how to prepare for it. I can pick up a Haze, or if I have a Hazemon, a Clear Smog. There's just so many things you could do. You could run the Mirror Herb. You can run Psych Up. There's a lot of ways to answer Dondozo, and because of that, we felt like it was definitely a mon that needed to be on Terra banned, because with Terra, it is able to kind of deal with some of those problems. You can't sleep it if it's Terra Grass, because Spore, or with Spore at least, you can't Clear Smog it if it's a Steel type. So there's several good Terra types for it. Dragon's another good one to get rid if it's 2 weaknesses it has as a Water type. So I think Terra is pretty good for it, but that being said, Dosogiri would be pretty powerful if it were any less than 18 points. So we've bumped it up to the top of A+ tier. Some other mons we moved up to 18 points, which you should hopefully be able to see, because we divided the categories a little bit different. You can see that it goes Farigiraf, Indeedee Female, Pelipper, Volcarona, and Whimsicott, and then below that are the other Mons in A+ tier. That's to separate Mons that moved up to 18 points and then Mons that moved to 17 points. We tried to follow this rule throughout. We didn't do a great job of it just because of the lack of space for a lot of these tiers, but a good way to know is anytime alphabetical order resets. So you can see that it goes from Whimsicott, who's W, to Alola Ninetales, which is A. So the alphabetical order resets there, and you'll be able to tell anytime alphabetical order resets that the value of the Mon decreased by 1. So that's something to know. Yeah, but looking here, you can see a lot of these are pretty reasonable changes in my opinion. Moving Pelipper up to the same tier as Torkoal, I think makes sense. He was previously 17 while Torkoal was 18, and we decided to move him up there. Both Indeedees actually saw quite some success, but females still better because of the Follow Me, though Indeedee male is quite fast, hits pretty strong, and has expanding force at its disposal. So both of these are great, and Psychic Train's obviously amazing, and there are a lot of Mons that work really well in it, so decided to increase them both by 1. Frigg is a great support option, especially with Armor Tail. Even if you don't actually run it, having the threat of it always switching in is great. Volcarona is a really good Mon because it has redirection. It can be a setup sweeper. I mean, there's so much you can do with it. Whimsicott's a great support Mon. It has Tailwind, Fake Tears, Encore, just so many options. Sunny Day, and it's the best Prankster Tailwind user by far. Murkrow is the only other one that comes somewhat close, but it almost always has to run either the Eviolite or maybe the Focus Sash, whereas Whimsicott can realistically run the Covert Cloak or Focus Sash. If the Murkrow chooses to run something like Covert Cloak, then it's really losing out on it has just no bulk. Whimsicott's kind of the same, but at least Whimsicott can do a lot of damage with its Moon Blasts, and it also has some better options generally, even though it doesn't have a Rain Dance. So we decided Whimsicott should increase in value, and then all of the Mons that went from 16 points to 17 points were Mons that we felt like, besides Indeedee, I guess the Ola, Ninetales, Hisuian Arcanine, and Kamo are all Mons with 4 times weaknesses that we felt really wouldn't be fair at the 15-point mark. So we decided to move them up to 16 and keep them Terrabanned for the last season. Now this season, we're not just auto Terrabanning every S and A+ tier Mon. We decided to move them up to 17 points because that's really more realistic for their value. I think 17 points, and being able to Terra means that these 2 Mons, or these 3 Mons, are more worth their value without being overpowered. And then the ones that made their way into A+ tier from A tier are Galarian Weezing, who's, you have to prep so much for Galarian Weezing. Ability Shield might be an item you have to run even if your opponent doesn't bring it, but because it forces so much prep, and because it also can make some Mons like Slacking or Toedscruel or some of the other Mons that aren't as reliant on their abilities, because it can make them so good, or turn off the opponent's abilities, we decided that it should definitely get increased up into the A+ tier, while Slacking is still in the A tier and Toedscruel is still in the B tier, I believe. So its best partners aren't in A+ tier, so you don't have to sacrifice as much to get Mons around it. You still have to sacrifice a little bit more to get it. Palafin was a Mon that should have been probably in the 16-point range, but we felt that we didn't want to Terraban it because giving it a Terraban makes it significantly worse. It's not able to power up its wave crashes as much. It's almost like a Basculegion in a sense, but it doesn't have as many options, and no Terra Ghost Lash or no adaptability as an option, no Swift Swim as an option, no Lash Respects or Ghost type, so it's not immune to Fake Out. So, and you need to switch out to make it good. So we decided that I think A+ is a pretty good spot for it. Porygon 2, another Mon that it should be an A+ tier. We didn't want to Terraban it last season. Same thing with Tyranitar. Neither of these Mons we wanted to Terraban last season, so we moved them at 15, but that was realistically 1 point too cheap for them. So now we can move them up into the A+ tier, and they deserve kind of to be in that tier because they're just so good. And Sinish is a great Mon for Trick Room and Redirection, and it's just a good bulky support Mon. So all of these Mons are very strong and deserve to be in the A+ tier. Then, before I move on, one thing you might note is that these are only the mons that have increased. Last slide we had every mon in the S tier, but that's because the S tier was small. So just to save space and to make it so we actually have room for every mon, you'll be able to see the mons that have increased in value in the tier, and then the mons that have stayed the same and decreased on the next slide. So you'll see here are the mons that have stayed the same and decreased. You can see that it's Grimmsnarl and Mousehold and Torkoal still at 18 points, all very strong Pokemon. Even though the A+ tier was previously Terra banned, none of these mons really rely on their Terra. I think Mousehold has like Flying and Ghost as like solid options. I think that Torkoal with Terra Fire can power up its eruptions a little more, but none of them are too problematic with their Terra. They're just good mons in general. So keeping them at 18 points makes sense. Both Basculegion stayed the same and were Terra banned still because of the threat of Terra Ghost or Water with their adaptability is just way too strong. So we had to Terra ban them for that reason. Last Respects is unbanned because this is a singles league, or this isn't a singles league, so it's not like the Last Respects can stack nearly as much. It's not nearly as threatening, but it's still very strong, so we decided for that reason to Terra ban them. And the Hatterene and Hisuian Lilligant and Typhlosion are also in the 17-point tier with Basculegion Male. Basculegion Male is 17 points while female is 16 because male has a higher attack stat while female has a higher or roughly the same attack and special attack. But it's typically better just to run a physical Basculegion because of Last Respects and Wave Crash. Female Basculegion can run like Hydro Pump or Blizzard or Icy Wind, but like it's just not really worth most of the time. So I think Basculegion Male is just 1 point better. I think that makes sense. Hatterene's a great Trick Room Sweeper and Setter, while both of Hisuian Lilligant and Typhlosion are great Sun Abusers, super fast and strong. Lilligant has Chlorophyll with Entrainment, Sleep Powder, After You, and Typhlosion has Eruption, Shadow Ball, and it's a Ghost type, so it's immune to Fake Out. A lot of options on that thing, so very good Pokemon. And then in the 16-point tier, we still have Murkrow and Smeargle. And Murkrow is like worse Whimsicott, basically, but they're pretty much the same. They just sort of slightly different roles. It has some great options like Quash. It has maybe Fake Tears, I don't know. It has both Weathers, though, and Tailwind, which are the big ones. So it's a good Pokemon overall. And Smeargle just has every move in the game. I think it actually has the lowest stat out of any mon that's fully evolved. It's technically fully evolved, even though it can't evolve. But I think it has the lowest base stat total out of any of those mons. But it has every move in the game, including like Spore, including a lot of like just annoying stuff that it can run, and it's a nightmare to prep for is the big thing. And in draft, you have to consider prep. And I think if this thing were any cheaper, he would go every single draft on. He would be drafted and be a real problem. So we decided A+ tiers is pretty legit for it. Then the mons moving down in A+ tier, we can see that all of these mons, besides Excadrill and Conkeldurr, are still in the A+ tier. But these two mons have moved down from A+ tier, and they were at 16 points before, but I decided to decrease both of them. I think Conkeldurr fits with some of the 15-point mons like Hariyama and Hisuian Gudra. I can't name all of them off the top of my head, but it feels very similar to Hariyama in a lot of ways. So I feel like it should be kind of in the same tier with it. And A+ is just a little too punishing for a mon that's only really good as it's very strong as a Trick Room Sweeper, but it kind of has to be in Trick Room to be good. And then we have Excadrill, who we decided to Terra ban. And the logic behind this was it's a really good mon to pair with Tyranitar. And you saw that Tyranitar moved up to A+ tier. So keeping both of these mons in A+ tier would be really bad for it. But to move it down to 15 points, we kind of had to Terra ban it because Terra Flying is really good on it. Also has Terra Ghost to its disposal. It has a lot of options. So just by Terra banning it, we're able to move it down 1 point, and we're able to do so pretty comfortably. I think this is the best solution for it in terms of balancing especially. And I think that there's no real better way to deal with Excadrill than just to Teraband it and move it down one. So that's what we did. Then some of these other mons, Incin, I think we initially overestimated its value just because it's the best mon in VGC history pretty much. But one thing to note is that it's only such a popular mon because it's a great glue piece. It fits on pretty much every single VGC team. In draft, that's not really of priority because it's not a meta really. So it's still a great fake out and intimidate user, parting shot user, U-turn. It's pretty good with AV. It has really strong knockoff and fake and flame. What's the word? Flare Blitz. So it's a good Pokemon overall, but it really didn't deserve to be 18 points, so we bumped it down to 17. And then some mons like Rilla and Amoonguss we just thought were too good to leave unbanned. So Rilla we Terabanned and bumped down to 17 because it's so good. Setting terrain is the big thing, but also can be very good with bulky sets, with sword stance sets. There's just a lot it can use. And then Amoonguss was just a problem because of its ability to redirect. It has Spore, it has Pollen Puff, it has Clear Smog. It can do decent damage, actually, if you run special attack on it. I've seen, actually, a set with Leaf Storm that was able to OHKO Ursaluna, which is kind of crazy. But just a lot of stuff it can do. So we decided to Teraband both those guys. Gallade, another mon we initially kind of overestimated a little too much. But it's still very good. It has an incredible move pool, and it hits very hard, so I think it deserves to kind of be at the 16-point tier still, but a very good mon nonetheless. And then Primarina was 18 points and Teraband. We decided to move him down 2 points and keep him Teraband. I don't think it benefits from Terra as much as some of these mons, but it's just kind of so threatening in rain. It can set up, and I think by banning that Terra, it now needs that setup to start dealing a lot of damage. Before, in rain especially, but with Terra Water Hyper Voice, you could just kind of shred through things. Also, some defensive types would be really good on it, just to give it a little more survivability. But with the Terra Water bans now, or any offensive Terra type bans, as well as the defensive, but it really can't start doing as much damage or be as much of a threat right away. Now it needs like a Calm Mind or a Throat Spray boost to really start dealing a lot of damage, and I think that's probably for the best because otherwise it could definitely get out of hand. So I think these changes were generally for the best in terms of these mons and in terms of the balance of the league overall. Now moving on to the mons in A tier. So we see Titan, Hydreigon, and Talonflame all moving up one. And these mons are moving up to 15 points, I believe, because all of these mons are pretty strong. Hydreigon is a good mon because it has Terra available to it to shed that 4 times weakness. It's a mon that you typically want to Terra, but it's just so strong as a special or sometimes a physical attacker, but there's just a lot it can run. It can run like a Focus Energy crit set to make its Dracos always crit and you don't get the drops. It actually gets Tailwind. You can run some Scarf sets on it. It's just a good mon overall. Talonflame has priority Tailwind with Gale Wings. It's just a good mon overall. It can be a not as much of an offensive threat, but it's a pretty good support mon and hard to deny that Tailwind a lot of the time. So we decided to bump it up one. And so Titan just has 3 incredible abilities. It has an insane bulk stat and HP at least. With AV, you can add that even more. In Snow, it's even bulkier. It has a very strong attack stat, and with the sheer force it can run, it can power that up even more. But the craziest thing is that out of the 3 major categories, right, bulk, attack, and speed, it has abilities for all of them. It can increase its attack with sheer force, increase its bulk with thick fat, or increase its speed with slush rush. And with sheer force and slush rush, those are huge changes to its attack and speed. So just a really good Pokemon. Felt it should be at 15 points. And then You can see in the mods moving up to 14, Slacking and Cleavor just because of their general strength. Slacking, particularly with Wheezing or Galarian Wheezing, but also with something like the Graphii or anything that can give Click Entrainment next to it. These are just all options or ways to make this this Pokemon, who has an insane base stat total, usable because of its because it can shed its ability and it can still Terra. So I think 14 points is reasonable for it. Cleavor, actually, I didn't realize quite how strong it was, especially with the sharpness ability. Also sets up Stealth Rocks, and in doubles, it's very rare to run hazards. So forcing your opponent to have some answer for hazards is also an element of prep, which they wouldn't normally have to even think about. So that increases its value a little bit more as well. And then the other 3 mons are all redirection mons. We just think 14 points overall makes a little bit more sense than 13 for it. And that was the same logic with Clefable as well. We think Clefable is a pretty good redirection mon, and we decided to move it up into A tier because there's no real reason that Clefable should be a full tier below Clefairy. Slightly worse because it can't run the Eviolite item, but Clefairy loses its item by having to run Eviolite, and even though it has Friend Guard, it's not that much better than Clefable, so we decided to move it and move Clefable up into A tier. Araquanid as well is a very strong mon with Water Bubble. Illumise, Volbeat, and Meowstic and Sableye are all mons that moved up as well. And these mons were just, they were at 12 points, and I thought that 12 points for these Prankster mons would be a reasonable enough price increase, but they were still incredible this season, or still very good this season at least. So by moving them up to the A tier, you have to sacrifice a decent bit to get these mons, and I think that's probably more of an appropriate sacrifice. And then some mons like Politoed and Ninetales, these mons should be in A tier because they're actually pretty good weather setters, even though they aren't the primary weather setters for their 2 conditions. They're so good that if they are 2 tiers below Pelipper and Torkoal, who are both at 18 points, then that's just kind of ridiculous. There's just way too much value there, and so we decided to make them 13 points and 1 tier below, and I think that should balance things out quite a bit. Then Comfey, another really strong mon. I think this mon was underrated because Floral Healing is just so good, and then having the Draining Kiss as well with +3 priority is just insane. No mon should be that strong in terms of its priority. No mon should have +3 priority to like pretty much all of the moves they're going to click. So, very strong mon. And the other mon was Wheezing, because Wheezing, again, should not be that much cheaper than Galarian Wheezing, so we decided to just move it up slightly, and we're moving Galarian Wheezing up to A+ tier anyways, so it feels fair to move up Wheezing to A tier, because if it's A+ versus B, that's kind of crazy. And then Metagross and Mamoswine are 2 mons that felt like they fit in with more of the A tier mons, those 13-point mons. Really weren't that much worse, and both saw a lot of success this season, or this previous season, so it kind of makes sense to bump them up a little. From there, let's move on to the mons that stay the same or decreased in value in A tier. And you can see the only mon that actually dropped in value from A tier and dropped out of A tier, I believe, into the B tier is Tinkaton. And that's because Tinkaton we kind of overestimated a little bit because Gigaton Hammer is really strong and Fake Out is a pretty good option for it. But it actually can't do that much. Again, it has a great typing too, but we overestimated it a little bit. And it's not quite as good as we thought, but it's still pretty good. So 12 points in B tier seems reasonable for it. And then all of these other mons kind of stayed the same. I don't think they really were in need of many changes. You can see Hariyama and Hisuian Gudra, again, pretty similar to Conkeldurr, who's now in that tier as well. You can see that Arcanine stays there. A lot of options for Arcanine. Most of these mons in general just kind of weren't super problematic, or, I mean, they're all good mons because they're in A tier, or some of these are the top of A tier, right? but there really weren't problems where they were at, and we believe their value is pretty fair. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, these are these are the A tier mons as well, and yeah, I don't think there's too much to note. You can see that Klefki is now also, or is still at the 14-point mark, so it's slightly higher than some of those other prankster mons, just because of its options, and has dual screens. I mean, it's just a better mon overall than some of them. But yeah, this is the A tier, and let's move on to the B tier now. So you can see that we have a lot of risers from C tier into the B tier, particularly 4 mons that increased by 3 points, which is the most of any tier. But Hisuian Samurott was, and Rhyperior and Rotom Heat were all in the MVP race, and they were all top 5 mons, I believe. Maybe not Rotom Heat, but Rotom Heat was close and was very dominant as well. So these were all incredibly strong Pokemon that really deserved to be in B tier from the start. And it was kind of just an oversight, or like we underestimated them. So they all made their way from B tier to C tier. Then you can see Blaziken as well, just a really strong mon. Speed Boost is so underrated, and it hits like a truck. Can run physical or special too, which is adds to its versatility. Hydrapple was a mon that was significantly too cheap. It was, I believe, a 8-point mon or a 9-point mon, but it just should have been a little higher than it was. Hitmontop has Fake Out, has a lot of solid options, but Fake Out and Intimidate is really good, and you can see Scrafty also went up 2 points because of that. Which kind of underestimated how good the combo of them were, even though like we generally knew. We just didn't expect both these mons to be nearly as bulky as they were on top of that. So yeah, they both deserve to increase in value a little. And then you can see Hawlucha's also increased by 2, just because the Unburden's so good, and you don't have to run Unburden. You can run like Limber maybe, but Mold Breaker is the other option for it. But it hits really hard, and it's not an easy mon to deal with in general. So I think moving it up 2 points really kind of makes its value a little bit more worth. Then you can see Cinderace, Hisuian Braviary, Inteleon, Mimikyu, Paldean Tauros, Normal Tauros, Rhydon, Sceptile, Vivillon, and Yanmega, all increased by 1 as well into the B tier. And I think most of these mons deserve to be in B tier as well. So yeah, I think this is more reasonable. And then other mons that increased in value in B tier: Ceruledge, who's incredibly strong, Milotic, who's very bulky, and Ceruledge can also run bulky sets as well. But Milotic has a competitive, which means Intimidate's not nearly as effective into it, so it's a pretty good bulky mon and can hit very hard, especially after 1 competitive boost. Rotom Wash is just such a good support mon overall that it definitely deserves to be in the B tier, and has a lot of disposals for it, or has a lot at its disposal, I guess. And we just thought it was like slightly undervalued. Scizor, a mon that I consider drafting at several points just because it's so strong, especially with Technician. You just have to respect it every single time it hits the field, whether with Swords Dance or Choice Band sets. It can become a real problem. And Skeleturge can set up very easily, very bulky, just a lot of good options to it. Overquill has Intimidate and Swift Swim, 2 great abilities. You see a few Fake Out users here as well, and Intimidate users. Rabombi, just underrated in terms of speed and power actually, but Tailwind setter as well. Barraskewda, just a really strong Rainmon. Rangrio, a good Trick Room setter. Instruct is obviously a great move, and yeah, it's just I think all these changes make sense. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in chat or ask afterwards, because I'm going to be creating a thread. All right, so moving on to the rest of the B tier mons, you can see that we have not a whole lot of change. Some of the mons that decreased in value were Ditto. We just kind of overestimated its strength because we had just come from playing a format with restricted Pokemon, and in those formats where you're only allowed to have 2 restricted Pokemon or 1 restricted Pokemon, it has a lot of value because you can become a restricted Pokemon immediately or become something like Fluttermane. It can become really strong. But in these lower power level formats, it's not nearly as good. Still pretty solid, still definitely a B tier Pokemon, but doesn't really deserve to be at like 11 points where I think it was at. Zoroark, another Mon, just because of the prep it forces, but Hisuian Zoroark is just so much better that we decided to bump him down 1. Rampardos has an insane attack stat, but he's kind of a potential Mon, so we bumped him down a little 2 into, I don't know if we demoted him a tier yet exactly, but we definitely bumped him down 1, and Toxtricity as well. A lot of potential with Toxtricity in terms of its ability, powering up its signature move Overdrive and Boom Burst on this thing, and Terra Normal Boom Burst, especially with Throat Spray, can be a problem. But both these mons are just kind of so bad otherwise and require like kind of perfect conditions, so we decided to decrease them by 1 despite how threatening they can be situationally. Then the rest of these mons belong to the B tier for sure. You can see some Weather Abusers. We can see Graphize, a Prankster user. Didn't increase with some of the other Prankster users because it doesn't have Tailwind, which is a big thing. Doesn't have actually a lot of good moves. There are only a handful of options that it's pretty good with, but because of that and because it's still a Prankster mon, could also run in Burden as well over Prankston or over Prankster. So this is it's a pretty good mon still, and so we decided to keep it at B tier. Otherwise, most of the stuff is self-explanatory. I mean, just didn't really have a need to change, so we didn't really change any of them. A lot of good mons in B tier as well. Let's move on to the C tier, where we can see that the 2 mons that increased the most are Florges and Infernape. And Infernape is actually a great mon. I used him in another league to a lot of success because of Fake Out, Feint. He's a good mixed attacker. You can run bulkier sets with Drain Punch if you really invest into that bulk. But it's just a strong mon overall. And then Florges has ridiculous special bulk and hits pretty hard actually as well. But despite not having great physical bulk, it is a real problem on the special side, and if your opponent has a mostly special team, then he's really good. Florges is a great Pokemon overall. It has actually underrated support options as well, which is something that I didn't realize until I used it last season, but I think after using it, I've kind of seen its potential. And then some of these other mons have found some success last season and kind of were probably a point too low. Some of these other mons just because of the tier shifts, the changes we've made, it felt appropriate to move them up just to help balance things out a little bit. Some of these mons are just really strong and underrated. I think a perfect example of that is Crawdaunt with Adaptability, Knockoff, or Aqua Jet and Rain. I mean, it's just so strong. Also has Terra as an option on it. Jolteon we saw last season. It's a great partner for any Stamina mon with like Pin Missile or any Rattled mon, which is like the Dunsparce pretty much. Maybe there are some other ones, but with Pin Missile. But it's just really fast. It has Alluring Voice, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt. It has a lot of the good evolution moves too. So pretty good mon overall. And then both of the Glowking and Glowbrow, I didn't realize at first how they were slightly better than the base Slowking and Slowbro. Because I didn't know too much about them, I just kind of put them all at 8 points. So I decided to move. Now that I've done a little bit more research, I understand kind of the potential these 2 mons have, especially with their signature abilities. Curious Medicine on Glowking, which resets all stat changes to 0, which can be really good actually. Great Dondozo answer, great for dealing with Intimidate. I mean, there's just a lot of applications for it. And then Shell Sidearm on Glowbro, which is the basically Quick Claw as an ability. You can also pair it with Quick Claw, so it's just really annoying. But it has a lot of applications as well. Other mons, I mean, we see that Electivire has followed me. Dusclops has 130 in both defense stats and can hold the Eviolite, which is insane. Drifloon has on Burden. Earth Eater is really good on Earthworm. Scyther has good Tailwind options and a lot of moves, pretty bulky with the Eviolite. Lucario is a good mixed attacker. Lycanroc. Dusk has Tough Claws, which means it can hit really hard. Also has Accelerock. I mean, a lot of these mons, I think their changes make sense. And then on the mons who are coming into C tier from D tier, You can see by far the biggest risers are Azumarill and Porygon Z. I think I underestimated both of these mons for sure. Azumarill, particularly in rain, but just Aqua Jet in general is really strong in this thing. Also has Belly Drum set as an option, especially if you have redirection, which means it can hit super, super hard. It's pretty slow, so in Trick Room or if you have investment in Tailwind, it can be a menace too. So just really good mon overall, and it just hits so hard that I think we have to put it in the C tier. And then Porygon Z as well with adaptability just hits so ridiculously hard. You can adaptability whatever type and it just does crazy damage. You can give it specs, you can give it Scarf if you need, but just tear into whatever type you want. Even if it's normal type, you need to power up that even more. But click an attack and it can just shred things. So despite having only okay stats, it definitely deserves to be C tier just because of its threat of adaptability. It also has 2 other decent abilities. But yeah, I think both of these mons deserve to increase in value. Then a lot of these other mons are kind of minor changes, but they have potential. I mean, all of these mons deserve to increase because, like, Hisuian Electrode is super fast and has actually some decent supporting options. Coughing forces a lot of prep. Yanma's really underrated, honestly. I was surprised not to see it drafted last season. Furret has good follow me options and knockoff. I mean, it has Frisk as an ability like Dusk Noir, so pretty good options there. Ludicolo, Fake Out, and Swift Swim user. Passimian hits super hard and can be pretty fast as well. It has Defiant and Receiver, which is a pretty fun ability, which is the same as Power of Alchemy, which is signature ability of Alolan Muck, who's also increasing by 1. Arboliva and Chestnut are both pretty bulky mons that have some underrated options as well. Clodsir can hit like a tank. Alolan Golem can explode and do a ton of damage. Powdon's a good weather setter. I mean, I think most of these are pretty self-explanatory. But yeah, these are the C tier mons. And then here's some more C tier mons. You can see that a lot of these mons are in a position where they're just kind of good where they're at. These mons are what you look at and see like, yeah, that's a C tier mon. Like, you can look at Dunsparce or Emboar or Vileplume or Delphox. Say like, yeah, this is a C tier mon. I think all these mons are good where they're at. Did a fairly good job balancing C tier this season. But some of these mons that we overrated a little bit are Rabsca just because of Revival Blessing, Scraggy because it's slower than Scrafty. We thought it wasn't that much worse than Scrafty, but it pretty much is. It kind of needs the Eviolite to be good because its stats are pretty bad overall. It can't be nearly as bulky or deal nearly as much damage as Scrafty. Can't hold the Assault Vest either because it needs Eviolite to get to that bulk, and then Scrafty can hold the... it basically, with Eviolite, has the same bulk that Scrafty has without Eviolite, so it's kind of rough. But it's slower, so it has some applications. The main reason it was good in comp, though, was because of it being slower than Ursaluna and Kali Ice, and that's obviously not super relevant here. Even though it is slower than the base 50s, which there are several of, it's still not really worth its value. Venomoth, we thought, because of its ability to be a setup sweeper, also its ability to redirect and have Sleep Powder, could be pretty good, but because of its terrible stats, frankly, even though it has great abilities like Wonder Skin and Shield Dust and maybe Tinted Lens, like just 3 incredible abilities, it's still just so bad in terms of stats, and you kind of need to Terra with it to make it like okay, because Bug Poison is just a rough typing. So yeah, it should go down by 1, but I mean still a solid C tier mon. Chinchino is a mon that has a lot of potential because it's fast, but that's kind of all it has going for it. It's fast, it has like skill link. Other than that, it's just not that great. Can't really do that much. So I think putting it down to the D tier is reasonable for it. I think we're kind of overestimating it, putting it at C. And Trevenant as well. Trevenant's actually not that good. He has like a few options. He deal a decent bit of damage in Trick Room, and he has like some ability to run some bulky sets, but he deserves to be D tier. He's not on the same level as a lot of these C tier Mons, even the 7-point Mons. And then a lot of the Mons we underrated or overrated as well. Wigglytuff, he does not deserve to be in C tier. We bumped him down to the top of D tier. And then Torracat and Ursaring are both at 9 points, just because Ursaring has guts and quick feet, so a little bit of a guessing game there, and can be pretty strong actually with those facades. It's really not that good for a 9-point Mon, even an 8-point Mon, so he's kind of on the same level as like Veluza or Staraptor or Samurott. I think moving it down to 7 points is reasonable. And then Torracat is just like a worse Ensign basically, but it's faster. So it has some things going for it, but it doesn't have a dark typing. I don't think it even has knockoff. So despite being better in some ways, it's also worse in a lot of ways and not nearly as bulky. Some of these Mons as well are in kind of an awkward spot where typically Mons with the Eviolite, or who aren't fully evolved and need Eviolite for bulk, they're in a tough spot because they pretty much are forced to run the Eviolite. We saw Thwackey last season on a team with another not fully evolved Pokemon, and Thwackey had to run the Assault Vessel a lot of the time because it couldn't really afford to be running the Eviolite on a Mon with another, or on a team with another Mon that wants the Eviolite Electabuzz. So I've had to run the Eevee a lot of the time, but it's just hard to make some of these Mons work when they aren't running the Eviolite, and you have less variety in terms of what item they can run. So in general, these Mons that don't have the Eevee, or that need to run the Eviolite, we decided to, on average, make like slightly cheaper. But yeah, those are the changes for C tier, and with that being said, that's pretty much all of the changes we're going to be talking about. With the D and F tier, because of the way we've updated the slots, they're essentially the same thing. So we decided not to put all of them on here. We moved, instead of having S, A plus, A, B, B, C, C, D, D, F, we have S, A plus, AA, BB, CC, DD. And what that does is a few things. So first of all, it gives way more slot variety. Before, you wouldn't be able to draft more than one A tier Mon, and now you have a lot more freedom in terms of your slots. So you can see the average slot is now a B slot instead of like in between B and C. We also bumped up the budget to 100, which I talked about earlier, but these two changes mean that, or justify a lot of the point increases we have for most of these Mons, and I think this is a better solution overall. It's better to have the a slightly less restrictive tier system. Last time it was kind of tough because you would have to, like, let's say you wanted 3 C tier Mons, that was really hard to do, and now it's kind of like a little bit more, you have a little bit more freedom because you can sacrifice one of your B slots and then sacrifice one of your A slots to turn it into a B slot or something like that, and you're able to have more than one A slot is the big thing, but there's just a lot more kind of versatility here. This helps teams that are going top heavy in terms of their ability to draft S, A plus, AA, and have a lot more budget, and it also helps teams that want to focus on their mid-tier Mons, like B to C tier Mons, because they have more slots to downgrade there. So you can have a lot of B tier or C tier Mons as well, if you want to downgrade some of those slots. And yeah, I think that it will be good for kind of anyone, regardless of their strategy. If you're looking for changes in terms of the D and F tier, because we aren't showing them here, check the doc. I'm going to be posting the doc fairly soon after the stream, and you'll be able to see all of the changes there for the D and F tier. I know I only talked about the Mons and moved from D tier up to C tier, but you'll see them all there. If you have any questions, again, we're going to be making a thread, but yeah, I just wanted to mention the slot changes, and I think it's for the best. How slots work as well is you draft them on, obviously your points go down, and they fill into your slot. So let's say I wanted to draft Torkel, right? Then I would be able to you add Torkel to your team, right? And then your points go down. He fills into the slot, right? It makes sense. But let's say I also want to draft Hisuian Lilligant, who's an A+ tier mon. Now I have an S slot, but I don't have an A+ tier slot. What you do when you draft it is you downgrade the slot. So Torkel slides up into the S tier slot, and Hisuian Lilligant slides into your A+ tier slot. Now let's say you wanted to drop Hisuian Lilligant and pick up like Sneasler, for example, or pick up I guess Sneasler's not S anymore. Pick up Archaludon for whatever reason. You can have that slot go back to being an S tier slot. It's not a permanent downgrading of any kind, but generally that's how it'll look. And you can see that if you draft 2 higher tier mons, you only have 65 points for all of these slots. You're going to have to downgrade if you're taking a lot of these higher tier mons. If you're going for a more top heavy approach, you're going to have to be downgrading a lot of slots. If you're going for like a more mid focused team, or like focused on those B tiers or C tiers, or maybe even A tiers, you can draft up to 4 A tiers actually. But you have a lot more freedom, and I think that's the benefit of doing it the way we're doing. And again, if you have any questions, check the thread that I'm going to be making in the Discord server. Feel free to ask me or any moderator, but especially me, because I made most of these decisions, or I was the lead on almost all these decisions. And then some final notes, because we're going to be heading into the draft pretty soon, is that the draft starts on May 1st. So we're going to be randomizing the order probably the night before, or maybe pretty soon before we actually get started with it. So I would say start planning now, now that I'm putting out this draft board. You don't have to take it too seriously, but just kind of looking and saying, okay, I like the value of these mons, or maybe just I want to wait and see how this goes in general for before I start planning. I just want to see, let's say I'm the 13th pick in the draft. I don't want to wait. I don't have to make all these plans about, okay, what if this guy falls to me, or what if this guy falls to me? I just want to wait and see, and that's perfectly reasonable as well. I will say with the draft, though, once the rounds get going especially, but it would be great if you guys could leave picks with us. Again, particularly me, but any moderator would be great. Leave picks, and we will send them if you're away, which will happen a lot of the time with time zones and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for signing up for Season 4. We are almost at capacity for both leagues, actually, which is incredible because it's only been a few days. But thank you guys, and I hope Season 4 will be incredible. Peace, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. See you guys.